Namaskar, a warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Manoj Singh Rana and with me is Renuka, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines: India rejects China's opposition to Vice President Venkaiah Naidu's trip to Arunachal Pradesh. Ministry of External Affairs says Arunachal Pradesh is an integral and inalienable part of India. New Delhi withdraws COVID-19 restrictions imposed on visiting UK nationals. In Taiwan, at least 46 people killed in a fire incident in Kaohsiung City. Pakistan International Airlines suspends flights to Afghanistan over security reasons. Parliamentary elections announced in Japan. In IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders to face Chennai Super Kings in the final at Dubai on Friday. And in football, India takes on Nepal in the SAF title clash on Saturday. As India is on the verge of vaccinating 100 crore people against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes the doctors, nurses and others who have been making this possible. At the same time, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festival season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. India has rejected China's opposition to Vice President Venkaiah Naidu's trip to Arunachal Pradesh. Briefing the media in New Delhi on Thursday, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arunachal Bagchi said Arunachal Pradesh is an integral and inalienable part of India. The spokesperson said that objecting to the visit of Indian leaders to a state of India does not stand to reason an understanding of Indian people.
अरुणाचल प्रदेश भारत का एक अभिन्न और अविभाज्य हिस्सा है। कई मौकों पर हमने चीनी पक्ष को स्पष्ट रूप से अवगत कराया है। भारतीय नेता नियमित रूप से अरुणाचल प्रदेश राज्य की यात्रा करते हैं, जैसे वो भारत के किसी भी अन्य राज्य में करते हैं। भारतीय नेताओं को भारत में किसी राज्य के दौरे पर आपत्ति जताना भारतीय लोगों के लिए तर्क और समझ से हटकर है।
On Bhutan and China signing an MOU on the 3-step roadmap for expediting the Bhutan-China boundary negotiations, the MEA spokesperson said India is aware that they have been holding boundary negotiations. Regarding the attacks on religious gatherings in Bangladesh, the spokesperson said celebrations of Durga Puja continue in Bangladesh with the support of the government of Bangladesh agencies and large minority of the public. He noted that the Bangladesh government has reacted very promptly to ensure the control of the situation.
We note that the government of Bangladesh has reacted promptly to ensure control of the situation. We also understand that the ongoing festive celebrations of Durga Puja continue in Bangladesh with the support of the government of Bangladesh agencies and of course the large majority of the public. Our High Commission in Dhaka as well as our consulates in Bangladesh are obviously in very close contact with the authorities and at local levels.
Replying to another query, Mr. Bagchi said India will participate in the Moscow format meeting on Afghanistan on the 20th of October.
We have received an invitation for the Moscow format meeting on Afghanistan on October 20th. We will be participating in it. I don't have a final confirmation who will be attending, but it's likely that we will have it at the Joint Secretary level.
On humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan, Mr. Bagchi said India's policy towards Afghanistan is guided by friendship with the Afghan people. He said India has in the past provided assistance both for infrastructure as well as infrastructure assistance. Regarding resumption of vaccine supply, the spokesperson said it has been decided to resume COVID-19 vaccine supply to neighbourhood initially. He added that India has sent vaccines to Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar and Iran. India has been re-elected to the United Nations Human Rights Council for a record sixth term with an overwhelming majority. Permanent Mission of India in the UN said India stands committed to working together with fellow members of the Council towards the goal of global promotion and protection of human rights. It expressed gratitude to the UN membership for reposing its faith in India. The Indian mission said it will continue to work for promotion and protection of human rights through Samman, Samvad and Sahyog. It has congratulated other UN member states who have been elected to the Council. The Bangladesh police have arrested 43 people involved in the attack on Hindu houses and for vandalizing temples in Kumila town. The police have also arrested the person who was allegedly posted the video of the desecration of the Holy Quran on the social media. The police is on the lookout for other persons who are involved in the incidents of violence in Kumila town on Wednesday. In order to contain incidents of violence reported from several places in Bangladesh, the Border Guard Bangladesh (BGB) has been deployed in 22 districts of the country following attack on Hindu temple and houses. The BGB personnel have been deployed in the districts on the request of the local administration and on the instructions of the Home Ministry. Home Minister Asad Zuman Khan told media on Thursday that people involved in the incident have been identified and they will be arrested without any delay.
India has withdrawn COVID-19 restrictions imposed on visiting UK nationals. The Health Ministry has relaxed the travel advisory that imposed additional checks and quarantine on those arriving from the UK. The move comes to reciprocate the UK government's decision to discontinue the mandatory quarantine and checks for Indian visitors vaccinated with Covishield. Earlier this month, India had said that all British nationals arriving in India from the UK will have to undergo a mandatory 10-day quarantine even if they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. A breakthrough for the Indian pharmaceutical industry in China has been achieved as the first anti-cancer drug from India has entered the Chinese markets. Agreements have been signed between local Chinese companies and India's Dr. Reddy's lab for the sale of Abiraterone, the first anti-cancer drug from India and China. India's ambassador Vikram Misri announced this in a tweet. There is a huge demand for cancer drugs in China as the mortality rate of cancer in China is high. As per the Chinese Medical Journal, China accounted for 24% of newly diagnosed cases and 30% of the cancer-related deaths worldwide in 2020. Beijing and New Delhi had agreed in 2018 to slash tariffs on the import of Indian medicines, including anti-cancer drugs, which have a substantial demand in China due to cheaper pricing than their Western variants. It has been a long-standing demand of India for granting greater access to drugs from India to Chinese markets. Ambassador Misri has been raising it at various forums in China. The news comes at a time when the bilateral trade between India and China totaled to $90.37 billion by the end of September 2021, an increase of 49.3% year-on-year, according to 9-month data released by the Chinese Customs.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Thursday said that the Indian government has taken evolutionary paths to ensure equal participation of the women in the armed forces. Delivering the inaugural address at Shanghai Cooperation Organization webinar on the role of women in armed forces, he said women have been serving with pride in the Indian military nursing service for over 100 years now. The Indian Army had commenced commissioning women officers in 1992. The minister said from next year, women shall be able to join the premier Tri-Service Training Institute, the National Defence Academy. He wished to see women officers from the SCO nations in the Officer Training Academy in Chennai. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said transitioning from crisis to recovery is one of the major challenges to ensure equitable access to vaccines for all. She suggested that keeping up the support, building resilience, enhancing productivity and structural reforms should be the policy goals. Ms. Sitharaman was speaking at the 4th G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting in Washington on Thursday night on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank annual meetings. Discussions and agreements on the various issues concerning global economic recovery, pandemic support to vulnerable countries, global health, climate action, international taxation and financial sector issues marked the meetings. The finance minister appreciated the role of G20 in rallying pandemic response and supporting vulnerable countries through debt relief measures. She suggested in focusing efforts on making the benefits reach the intended countries.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on PM Gati Shakti Vision for a Change. In conversation are A.K. Bhattacharya, economic analyst, and Shishir Sinha, journalist.
Government has launched rupees 100 lakh crore national master plan titled Gati Shakti for multimodal connectivity that aims to develop infrastructure to reduce logistic cost and boost the economy. The program targets to cut logistic cost, increase cargo handling capacity, and reduce the turnaround time. Mr. Bhattacharya, why there is a need to launch this kind of program, especially when we are talking about $5 trillion economy in coming years?
The primary reason for launching Gati Shakti, it now appears, is to fix a major governance gap that execution of all infrastructure projects of this type had been experiencing for several years, which is that when a road project is implemented, it does not necessarily mean that only the Ministry for Surface Transport will only be involved, because laying a road in whichever territory requires the involvement of various other ministries and the state level administration and even municipal authorities. Because without their complete participation in the project, the execution of laying of road will not be without troubles and without glitches. So this Gati Shakti envisages a digital structure by which the interministerial silo problem will be eliminated, in the sense that there will be a platform on which a project's dashboard will be created, on which different ministries involved in the project's execution will have access and will be involved in the execution of the project. So the idea is to create a kind of a new software for implementing this hardware of infrastructure projects. Because the National Infrastructure Pipeline was talking about executing projects in the traditional way. But Gati Shakti will hive off many of these projects and subject them to this new digital platform where its execution and implementation will sought to be achieved in a manner where the ministerial silos or the silos between the states and the center or the states and the municipal authorities, they are dismantled and they are eliminated.
As you rightly mentioned about the execution part, as on date, the logistic cost for India, it is in double digit. It is almost 13 to 14%, and that is certainly affecting competitiveness. Since this program has one major target to bring down that logistic cost, what kind of target you think that this particular cost can be brought down?
There is a lot that can be gained by way of cost saving in executing these projects in a manner that is being envisaged through this digital platform. Because what earlier used to happen is the delay part, in a sense that even though the Prime Minister would be holding his Pragati meetings every month, but those Pragati meetings could not cover all the projects. So there was need for subjecting the large number of infrastructure projects to closer scrutiny and avoiding the kind of implementation delays that normally dog such projects. So the first gain would be the cost of delays. If the project execution is delayed, then the cost escalation that happens are in crores. I mean, a project which is supposed to be implemented in 5 months or 1 year, if that project execution takes place in 2 years, the cost almost doubles. So if this digital platform can achieve a timely execution of these projects as per schedule, that goal itself, to my mind, will reduce the overall costs of these projects a great deal, actually much more than the logistics cost saving that you talked about of 15%.
As on date, the latest government data shows that there are cost overrun of almost 4.83 lakh crore, which is almost equivalent to what we have provided in the budget under the capital expenditure. It's something 5 lakh crore plus, and now cost overrun on account of delays 4.83 lakh crore. So that saving will ensure a proper utilization of resources. What is your view on that?
You are absolutely right, because if you save so much money, the exchequer gains that much amount, and the money saved can actually be diverted to creating more such projects and building more capacity, not just in the infrastructure sector, but a host of other areas where resources are needed to be allocated. That is number one. Number two, the money saved can actually give a lot of opportunity for the executors of these projects to plan a maintenance strategy for these projects. Remember that an infrastructure project, after its execution, is only half the job done. If a road is constructed or an irrigation project is completed, the job is not completed or done. It is important to ensure that those projects are maintained in a manner that their viability remains intact and they don't suffer from neglect, either because of funds allocation not being there to maintain those projects. Now, this digital platform will help us in ensuring adequate and timely maintenance of these projects in two ways. One, the project cost overrun will be eliminated or reduced substantially. That will give the project implementers as well as the exchequer more money to plan about its maintenance. And second, the stakeholders of these projects will be able to use the digital platform in monitoring its execution and maintenance schedule. Because let us say if a road is built, then the question of how do you maintain the road, how do you make sure that the road is in a proper condition. Now, I would imagine that a digital platform like this will have feedback from the various ministries and the various agencies involved, and those feedbacks will be fed into this platform so that the project authorities can monitor them, not just by going and doing physical inspection, but even sitting on that digital platform on this computer and seeing that this segment needs to be once again require some sort of recarpeting or relaying of the road. So therefore, it will help in both maintenance as well as ensuring that the delays are eliminated.
If I go by the physical target set under this particular scheme, it talks about setting up 11 industrial corridors and 2 defense corridors, then 4G connectivity in all villages, increasing renewable energy capacity to 225 gigawatt from 87.7 gigawatt, then expanding national highway network to 2 lakh kilometer, increasing length of transmission network to 4,54,000 circuit kilometer, creation of 220 new airports, heliports and water aerodromes, increasing cargo handling capacity of railway to 1,600 million tons, adding 17,000 kilometers to gas pipeline network, and 202 fishing clusters, harbors, and landing centers. Mr. Bhattacharya, do you think that these targets are slightly ambitious because we are setting a timeline of 2024-25 and we are in the year 2021-22?
Well, there is no doubt that these are ambitious targets, and the government will have to put in place really effective and efficient teams to monitor the execution of these projects. Project delays have been a bane of infrastructure sector for several years in the past, and this is yet another attempt by the government to use technology to plug these delay gaps. So one has to wait and watch to see how much of these projects that you just now listed actually get implemented by that target date. But what is important here is not just to recognize the real challenges of meeting those targets, but equally important would be to make sure that the viability and the policy framework in making sure that these new projects are not only executed and implemented, but a viable revenue model is created
My final question to you, Mr. Bhattacharya, when we are talking about $5 trillion economy, and there have been some doubts that whether we will be able to achieve 2024-25 or 2025-26. So how this will clear the timeline for achieving $5 trillion economy in your expectation or in your analysis? What kind of timeline should we look for $5 trillion economy after implementation of this program?
A $5 trillion economy is a target. And as I said in the beginning, that every government is within its rights and legitimately so to set targets which are ambitious. And now, infrastructure projects will have a lot of spin-off benefits for the economy in terms of growth, and it is also a growth enhancer. So there is no doubt that Gati Shakti infrastructure initiative will help expedite the GDP size or the GDP growth of the economy over a period of time. Whether they are implemented in a manner to help achieve the $5 trillion economic goal within those financial year of 2025 or 2024 is something that will have to be watched and seen. But important point to be noted here is that these initiatives are there, and if these initiatives get implemented and converted into real projects which create revenues for the government and the other stakeholders like the private sector, the states, and the urban local bodies or the rural local bodies, I think on the whole, the Indian economy will benefit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhattacharya.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. In Taiwan, at least 46 people were killed and dozens more seriously injured in a fire at a 13-story tower block in the city of Kaohsiung. Local fire department said that a residential and commercial building caught fire in the early hours of Thursday. It took firefighters more than 4 hours to extinguish the blaze. The fire department told media that 79 people were taken to hospital, including 14 in a serious condition. The cause of the fire is unclear and investigators are at the scene.
The Pakistan International Airlines PIA, the national carrier of Pakistan, on Thursday said it has immediately suspended its operation in Kabul, citing security reasons. Abdullah Khan, the national carrier spokesperson, confirmed the development, saying that Kabul operations of the PIA will remain suspended until further notice, the Dawn reported. The spokesperson emphasized the fact that the PIA had kept flying in and out of Kabul under difficult circumstances when others had ceased their operations. He said that the PIA evacuated around 3,000 people after the rapidly changing situation in Afghanistan. He noted that among the people flown out of Kabul were officials of the United Nations, World Bank, the IMF, other global organizations, as well as international journalists. Earlier in the day, the Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority called on the PIA and Calm Air Airlines to bring down the fares of Kabul-Islamabad flights back to the pre-August 15 rates. The authority also threatened to stop flights between Kabul and Islamabad if the airlines did not comply. The Tolo News reported. Meanwhile, CNN reports that the airline said conditions had worsened since the Taliban formed a new Afghan government last month, and that the PIA and its staff position in Kabul were dealt with very heavy-handedly by the new Taliban commanders.
The lower house of Japan's Diet has been dissolved for general election. The Speaker of the House made the announcement on Thursday, which triggers a national election. The Cabinet will meet later in the day to formally set the election date, which is expected for October the 31st. It will be the first lower house election in 4 years. Mr. Kishida Fumio was confirmed as Prime Minister on 4th of October, just 10 days ago, to replace Yoshihide Suga. It marks the shortest period between a Prime Minister taking office and the dissolution of the lower house in post-war Japan. Norway's security service has said that a deadly bow and arrow attack in the country, which left 5 people dead, appears to have been an act of terror. However, a motive has not yet been determined. The suspect, a 37-year-old Danish citizen, has converted to Islam, and there were fears he had been radicalized, police say. He is accused of killing 4 women and a man on Wednesday night in the southern town of Kongsberg. Residents have been deeply shaken by the violence.
In the IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders will lock horns with Chennai Super Kings in the title clash at Dubai tomorrow. CSK, led by Mahendra Singh Dhoni, made history by reaching their 8th IPL final. Earlier last night, Kolkata Knight Riders defeated Delhi Capitals in a last-over thriller in Qualifier 2 at Sharjah.
The Indian men's badminton team suffered a defeat at the hands of formidable China in its last group match at the Thomas Cup on Thursday. Only the doubles pair of Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty could manage a win in the men's team championship tie as they beat He Ji-ting and Zhao Haodong 21-14, 21-14.
India reached the final of South Asian Football Federation SAF Championship after beating defending champion Maldives 3-1 at Male on Thursday. Manveer Singh had given India the lead in 33rd minute, but Ali Ashfaq scored a penalty to level the tie before half-time. Later, India bounced back through their talisman Sunil Chhetri, who smashed a loose ball shortly after the hour mark in the 62nd minute. He then doubled his tally in 71st minute with a looping header. 7-time champions India will take on first-time finalist Nepal in the title clash on Saturday. Captain Chhetri was the man of the match for helping India to qualify for the final of the competition for the 8th successive time.
And now a report from the business world.
At the stock markets rising for the 6th straight session, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange climbed 569 points or 0.9% to end at a fresh all-time high of 61,306. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange advanced 177 points or 1% to a new record high of 18,339. At the forex market, the rupee gained 11 paisa to 75 rupees and 26 paisa against the dollar. Among global markets, Asian markets ended mostly higher. Global crude oil futures rose by about 1% after the International Energy Agency said that record natural gas prices will boost demand for oil, and top oil producer Saudi Arabia dismissed calls for additional OPEC plus supplies. Gold rose 129 rupees to 46,286 rupees per 10 grams at Delhi's bullion market. Anubha Rohadgi for World News, All India Radio.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian reports that Islamic State is rebuilding in Syria, says Kurdish forces. Financial Times writes that 6 persons have been killed in Lebanon after snipers opened fire on Hezbollah-led rally in Beirut. The Washington Post says WHO announces new expert group to investigate origins of the coronavirus and other outbreaks. South China Morning Post says WHO says global COVID-19 cases decline but death rise in Europe. Gulf Times quoting U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says that the U.S. does not intend to support any efforts to normalize ties with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad or rehabilitate him until there is irreversible progress towards a political solution in Syria. Wall Street Journal in an exclusive story says U.S. aims to resume regular evacuation flights from Afghanistan.
Now a look at the headlines. India rejects China's opposition to Vice President Venkaiah Naidu's trip to Arunachal Pradesh. Ministry of External Affairs says Arunachal Pradesh is an integral and inalienable part of India. New Delhi withdraws COVID-19 restrictions imposed on visiting UK nationals. In Taiwan, at least 46 people killed in a fire incident in Kaohsiung city. Pakistan International Airlines suspends flights to Afghanistan over security reasons. Parliamentary elections announced in Japan. In IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders to face Chennai Super Kings in the final at Dubai on Friday. And in football, India takes on Nepal in the SAS title clash on Saturday. India is celebrating the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Denmark.
Vaishnav Jan tu tine kahiye ke peed parai jaane re par dukhe upakar kare toye man abhiman naane re Vaishnav Jan tu tine kahiye ke peed parai साथ मन निश्चल.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.